All right, welcome to episode number 249 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We are recording on October the 6th, 2024. My name is Eric, host of the show based in Southern Ontario, hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator. I guess I can kind of call myself a computer geek still after last episode with the audio problems and everything. Gain's a thing, and don't let your kids play with the computer. As a first responder, witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events, started a small preparedness company to help people get better prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
And I'm Jeff. I'm based in Central Ontario. I am a target shooter, also a ham radio operator, general overall handyman, and weather nerd.
And I'm the Frugal Gunny. I'm an off-gridder, a shooter, hunter, fisher, gatherer, trapper type, and a generalist. And I only relatively recently came to accept that I'm a prepper. I encourage and live a mobility approach to survival. If you want to help to support the show, buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the tactical Velcro patch at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All the proceeds help cover our podcast costs.
And if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and submit a review wherever you may have found us. We want your feedback, even if it's bad. We also invite you to reach out and tell us about something you learned this week. You can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so we got some flowing content for you in this episode. Yeah, 249, the terrible intro jokes still continue. I'm going to start off with some relevant news articles. We'll update you on what we've done for our personal preps since the last episode. We're going to get into the main topic. We're talking about water tonight. Let's touch on the news.
I got a couple of different things here. So one out of the New York Times, but there's lots of them, that the recovery efforts from Hurricane Helene continue. The death toll is still going up. Last I checked, it was 227. It's probably higher than that now. There are still lots of towns, small towns, areas that they haven't even got to yet. They're cut off. I'm not going to get into a lot of the politics of everything. As more responders get in there and they start getting into things, there's reports coming out. You got to take what's on the internet with a grain of salt, and even from the media, that some local first responders are running interference, and they're telling the civilian help that's coming in, oh, it's too dangerous, you can't go there. They're like, this is what we do, we're a search and rescue, this is what we do. Oh, no, it's too dangerous, it's our gig, it's our thing, we'll take care of it. So I don't know. You never know. I mean, I know for a fact there's one documented case in Lake Lure, North Carolina, where a civilian helicopter pilot was ordered to abandon his rescue mission mid-rescue and was threatened with arrest if he came back. So, but anyways, anytime things like that happen, it's unfortunate, but if nothing else, this should be a whole big wake-up call to everybody about your preps and having your stuff ready. And it's kind of why I wanted to do the water thing today. So we'll go from there. On a government note, my next article, FEMA, which is, of course, the U.S. Federal Emergency Management, they say they're running out of money. And they don't know if they're going to have enough money for the next hurricane, which I'll talk about in my weather blurb, is coming in like 3 days. So, it's a problem. The last article I've got from CBS News, I believe it's Baxter is the name of the company, and they make around 60% of the IV fluids that go to hospitals, and their plant was extremely badly damaged in the hurricane, and hospitals are starting to run low on IVs. So
kind of important, aren't they?
Yeah, it's really important. The other companies are saying, well, we're going to ramp up production, we're going to try and help out, but I threw that on Discord and somebody made a comment like, and they said, you'd think we're in a third world country or something, like running out of this basic stuff. And, you know, things happen, and I'm not going to point fingers at anybody, but, you know, Matthew, I'll touch on your comment further down. He says he's joining from Florida and he's concerned about Milton. Yeah, I'll talk about that down in my weather blurb. So that's all I got for now for news.
And if anyone's paying attention to the comments as well, Kyle B's got some dehydrated water for sale. So if anyone's interested, you just add water and then you get water. So touch base with Kyle if you're looking to buy some dehydrated water. All right, let's move into what we've done lately for preps, shall we? We'll kick off with Jeff.
Next to nothing. This has been one of those weeks where I've just had 110 things to do, and 99% of them were not prepper related. So I really haven't done much this week.
I'm kind of in the same boat. It's been a whole lot of work. It's been taking up a lot of my time. The truck also had some problems. It left on a tow truck to the shop. That sucks. Oh, yeah. But yeah, it's been busy around here, which happens, right? There's times where you just can't fit preparedness into the schedule because life's a thing and it gets in the way sometimes. So next week I'll have some stuff.
Absolutely. I haven't done much preps either. It's been a lot of work, quite a lot of work. But my Anchor Solix is in, so I'm going to be using it and testing it this weekend coming up. Looking forward to doing that, and more follow on that one. In the meantime, I'm preparing for my last big trip up to the cabin, including the truck. And one of the things I did, if any of you are thinking of hauling heavier than you're rated for, or you want to increase the hauling rating of your truck, one of the things you can do is upsize your transmission oil cooler, and that's what I've done. And that should help me get beyond the 3,500 pound limit that I currently have. So that I'm looking forward to testing and seeing how things go long term with that. That's about all I've had the chance to do.
It must be nice to have a truck that runs.
Well, you know, Matthew put in there, isn't it a Ford? No, it's not. It's a Chev, but I don't really see the difference. So,
wow.
Ouch.
You know, me and Gunny, we got the Toyotas. We're good to go.
This is
there
true.
Is that reliability factor on the Toyota. I got to give them that. It's a good club to be in, eh, Jeff?
It is.
Oh boy. Well, you know, someone's got to take the punches when Terry's not here, so I'll take them. All right. So with that and the ever growing vehicle battles, because we're always going to have this, how about we move on to the main topic, shall we? And like I said, tonight we're talking about water because it's an important thing.
It is. Actually, it's to me, it's more important than food. Anybody who knows or lives in the prepper world, we do things in threes: 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter in adverse conditions, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. Personally, I've talked to, you know, not a lot, but a fair amount of more newer preppers, and I find they get tunnel vision and they get wrapped up on the food, and I got to have this food, and it's food. And, you know, they come out with these buckets of this, you know, ready to make food or 25-year food. And, you know, I'll say to them, well, you know, what about your water? Like, what do you need to make that food edible? You need water. Food's no use to you. It's useless if you don't have any water. So I think it's one of the most overlooked preps. For just a number's sake, each person should roughly have about a gallon, so 3.5 to 4 liters per day per person in your household. That's going to count just drinking water, water for prepping meals, prepping food, that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about, you know, water to do dishes or flush the toilet or stuff like that. That's totally a separate thing. you should have about a gallon a day just for yourself. So I thought I'd move in and we'll talk about, first of all, where can you source water? So we're into a I guess shit hit the fan time when I'm talking about this. So your best source of water is flowing water of some kind, a stream, a creek, a river. It's better than stagnant water. You can use stagnant water. However, you need to be careful. Don't use water that has floating material in it or water that has a dark color or a questionable odor. If you have a well, great. That's awesome. If you don't have some way of manually getting the water out of that well, you might want to think about that, considering some kind of a manual water pump. Back in the old days, just the water pumps. In a pinch, your largest water capacity thing in your house, for the most part, unless you have on demand, is your hot water heater. Lots of people don't think about that. You don't think about the hot water heater. You can get water out of that and drain the water from your hot water heater. Just make sure you turn the breaker off first, even if the power's off. So if the power comes back on, the first thing that's going to happen is your heating elements are going to get energized. There's no water in there. They're going to burn out. So,
and if you're going that route, just be careful because it is hot. So let it cool down before you start cracking that sucker open, because if not, you're going to get a blast of hot water.
You're going to regret it. Yep, absolutely.
Yep. And then you're getting into the first aid and all that fun stuff, which is in previous episodes that you should check out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Darius says you need to learn how to disconnect the hot water heater from the main. Yes and no. Just turn your main off and it'll stop the backflow. Things won't go past, and then open a tap at your top floor and it'll gravity drain down and it'll drain your hot water heater out. Depending whether or not you've cleaned it in a while, you might have quite a bit of sediment, but we'll get to that next. But rainwater is also a fairly clean source. I caveat that with depending on how you harvest it. If you're using rainwater off of your roof, chances are it's not clean. What happens? What gets on lots of people's roofs? Hate to say it, bird shit. So when it rains, it's going to wash that bird shit down into your gutters, into your water. So better thing, maybe put a piece of plastic out and catch the rainwater in the plastic, or even dew or anything like that. But no matter what method you source your water from, even if you think it's safe, consider all water contaminated. That way, you're not going to go wrong. Hopefully things will go well, and you're not going to have a problem. So doesn't matter where you got it from, consider it contaminated.
Yeah, if you try to clean up or decontaminate water that is already clean and already contaminated, you're not going to do any worse. So it's
exactly
absolutely right. We now know that rainwater actually has a lot of toxic chemicals in it. We know that if it comes off a roof, it's got a lot of nasty stuff in it beyond just, the bird poop, right? Shingles and all that. They've got stuff that leaches off of them over time. So Jeff is right. You should treat all water sources and or at least filter or have a capacity to. I have in a pinch had water directly from a stream, but it was a flowing stream and it was a spring stream because it ran all year round and it was really clean and cold and constantly flowing and no problem. But was that a risk I was taking? You betcha. It was a risk.
Yep.
I would definitely treat it all. So beyond the basic boiling, right? Because I think that's what everybody knows. The standard is whatever source you've got, even if it's flowing and it looks good, right? We can boil it 5 minutes, rolling boil, and you've got yourself something that you can drink, right? What else can we do other than that? Clean it up.
What I would do is I first of all, before I even boil it, I would filter it. You never know what's in it. you know, never know what kind of, and when I say filter, we're not talking about a high-tech filtration system, because this is a kind of a shit hit the fan scenario, or you're out in it. You can use paper towel, put 2, 3, 4 layers of paper towel together, pour the water through it, use some kind of a cloth. You could maybe even use a shirt. My go-to that I have.
Do you hear Ian yelling something about a life straw? I think I can hear him all the way from BC right now, just screaming at the top of his lungs, life straw.
Oh, probably. Yeah. Yeah. Or the other thing that I use is I use just a coffee filter. I have an old, I got it at a garage sale for like $5. It's a small coffee carafe. It's got the top that fits on it, takes the V-shaped coffee filters. Just pour that through. We're not talking about purifying anything here. We're just talking about getting rid of debris, larger pieces of stuff. If the water's cloudy, let it settle for a bit before you filter it. Gunny was right. If you want to purify water, there's several different ways to do it, but he was right. The best and number one option is to boil your water. He said 5 minutes. They recommend a rolling boil for 1 minute. If you're under 5,000 feet of elevation, 3 minutes if you're above. Who cares if it's 1 minute, 5 minutes, whatever. Bring that water to a boil. Obviously, as Eric mentioned with the hot water heater, let it cool down before you pour it into your container or whatever you have. And that can improve the taste. Some people say boiled water is flat. Yeah, it is, because you've boiled it. You've taken the air and all that stuff out of it. So if you pour it back and forth between a few clean containers, it will improve the taste a little bit. I mean, at the end of the day, it's an emergency thing. I don't think you're too worried about the yeah. And there are lots of ways to bring it to that rolling boil. You can use a wood stove. You can use a barbecue or some kind of a grill, a campfire, you know, a small, one of those single burner portable stoves. There's lots of ways to be able to bring that water to a boil. Obviously, you're not going to want to use a plastic water bottle or anything like that. It needs to be metal, exactly like Gunny's got. Greg, who's one of our panelists, couldn't get on tonight. He actually has those. He sells them. I don't have his website. If somebody has it, they can throw it up there in the show notes. And
I'll put it in the show notes in a second.
Yep. So there's that. That's one option. Second option, if you can't boil the water for some reason, or there's another way, you can use bleach. Bleach will sanitize the water. Use only regular, unscented chlorine bleach products that are suitable for disinfection and sanitization as indicated on the label. Most bleaches are either a 6 or an 8.5% of sodium hypochlorite. And I'll kind of touch on something with that a little bit later. Again, don't use scented, color safe, or bleaches with added cleaners. 100% bleach. That's it. No, nothing else. Use a clean dropper. You get them from a medicine cabinet. Might have one in your emergency supply kit. If you don't have one, go to your local pharmacy and buy one, or 2 or 3, because 1 is none and 2 is 1. And just use the bleach to sanitize the water. 8 drops of 6% or 6 drops of 8% per gallon. Stir it, let it sit for 30 minutes. The water should have a slight chlorine odor. If it doesn't, repeat the dosage, let it stand for another 15 minutes, check it. If there's still no chlorine odor, there's something in that water, dispose of it, thoroughly clean the container, and find a different water source. Once you've opened and started to use that bleach container, it's probably good for about a year, maybe a little bit more. But that's what that's good for. You can also use iodine, or what they call a tincture of iodine. A lot of people have that in their medicine cabinets, their first aid kits. 5 drops of 2% tincture of iodine in each liter of water that you're disinfecting. Again, stir, let it sit for 30 minutes, and you should be good to go. The only drawback to that is with the iodine, there's no odor. So with the chlorine, you can tell that maybe something's a little off. You've put it in, you're not getting an odor. So there is a chance there, very slight, very slim. You've got a huge opportunity for it to be perfectly fine. Off-Grid Life says, how many drops of bleach per gallon? I didn't do that, but I said, 8 drops if your bleach is 6%, or 6 drops if it's 8.25%. Another thing you can use is water purification tablets. You can disinfect water with tablets that contain the chlorine, the iodine, or other disinfecting agents. These tablets are available online. I will caution you about buying online. You never know exactly what quality you're going to get buying online. You can also get them at pharmacies, your sporting goods stores like Cabela's, Cambodian Tire, those kind of places will have them. Follow the instructions on the product label. Each product may have a different strength. So, buy your stuff from a reputable source. And I seen somebody in the comments there ask about pool chlorine. You can use that. I would say to use that as a last resort, because pool chlorine is called calcium hypochlorite. It's the granular chlorine, and it's very different from the liquid. So don't confuse them, and don't say, okay, I can put 2 tablespoons of liquid chlorine in this water and it'll be fine. And you put 2 tablespoons of the pool chlorine in it and you can't even drink it. It's so strong. So you can make your own. You add 1 heaping teaspoon of the granular, it's called calcium hypochlorite. It's pool chlorine, pool shock, that kind of stuff, to 2 gallons of water. Stir it till it's dissolved, and that will give you a mixture of about 500 milligrams per liter. So 16 ounces or a pint of that type of chlorine will do between 12 and 15 gallons of water. Again, if you haven't done this, experimented with it, whatever, be very careful. That calcium hypochlorite is a very powerful oxidant. It will burn your skin. If you inhale it, it will burn your lungs. So follow the instructions on the label for safe handling and storage. If you want to, look at a video of somebody who does it, one of our prior members, Hughes, anybody remembers Hughes? He has a YouTube channel, HFX Prepper. So that's Hotel Foxtrot X-Ray Prepper. And he actually has a video on exactly how to make your own chlorine. So if you want to go and have a look at that. You can use products like a Berkey, a Life Straw, you're welcome in, a Sawyer, or any other brand that you have. They all claim to be able to purify the water, and I'm not saying they don't. Still, you might want to err on the side of caution a little bit anyways. You don't know how much more life you may have in that filter, whether it's 100% filtering it or not. I'm not saying not to use them. Lots of people use them, and they're great. I would if I wanted to use that, I would try to disinfect it some other way first and use that. If not, and that's the only thing I have, then absolutely, I'm going to go ahead and use it. And, but you know, it's just one of those things.
I think it's best to know how to use and have a number of different systems, as most people will conclude. I like having a couple of portable options, including that life straw. I personally run a Ketadin because it allows me to fill up various different kinds of containers pretty easily while on the go. And so for portable, these are the things that I like, but a lot of people I know swear by their Sawyers. I know MSR has a pretty well-reputed system out there too. There's a whole pile of them out there, but I think nothing really beats the combination, the old school combo that we referred to in the chat here already. Sand, gravel, charcoal, those things are timeless, and charcoal's pretty easy to obtain if you know how to make fire. So in a true survival situation where all the gadgetry might fail you, or get cracked, get damaged. I mean, one thing to note here is this is Canada. So all these beautiful sealed cartridge type quick filters that Jeff mentioned and that I just mentioned, they're all great out there in this normal weather. But here, when things freeze, and we know that water does funny things when it freezes, right? All those filters could be subject to being no longer much of a filter for you. So it's really good to know the old school way of filtering water with just basic sand, charcoal, and gravel, right? The combination of those three materials, some sort of container, some sort of way to flow the water through that system of layers, and away you go. You've got yourself drinking water, right? And it's gravity fed too, so you can do other things while your water is filtering for you. Sorry, go ahead, Eric.
No, all good. You even mentioning the fact that those filters might not work all that great if they freeze, or like water does funny things if they freeze. Even if you take all that out, eventually those pre-made or store-bought filters get to the end of their lifespan, and they're not going to filter anymore. So knowing how to get back to basics and do it yourself is key, because eventually, it's good to get you through, right? They're nice to have in a pinch. But knowing how to do it yourself is going to ensure that once you get past that lifespan of that filter, you're able to carry on and still filter water and still have the knowledge and ability to do it yourself and not rely on that manufactured piece of equipment. Because, we all like our trinkets, we all like our toys, but eventually they run their course, right? So back to basics is always key.
And
Absolutely.
Part of the problem may be, as Gunny said, something may go wrong and you haven't realized it's gone wrong. And you drink that water, and now all of a sudden, now you've got a gastrointestinal problem that is going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. Trust me.
Yeah, Jared, yeah.
There won't be enough toilet paper at Costco for that.
and that's just a bad day. And some of these bugs you can get from your water, man, they can leave you with a lifetime of crippling side effects. So, you know what? Pay attention to your water, folks. The other thing I'm going to just highlight and drop in right here is that for aeons, the human body's been used to going without food for days on end. Days on end. I know today people get hangry and get cranky after, missing an 8-hour gap without a meal. I don't care.
8 hours. It's been 30 minutes into the podcast. I'm already getting hangry.
I don't care. And nature won't care either when you're in a rough shape. So if you've got all that food, all those food buckets lined up, but you haven't figured out all the water supply you're going to need to digest all that food, because that requires an awful lot of water. Go ahead and have a big steak, but I dare you not to have anything to drink after you've had that gigantic steak. Let me know how you're doing. Right, you're going to need that water to digest that big puppy, guaranteed.
It's true.
Right? So yeah, please, folks, don't underestimate the value of the fresh water. And I think that's the one thing we have going for us here in Canada. We've got so much access to it. In the wintertime, I'm going to talk about one big source here for your emergency water, don't use snow. It's extremely ineffective source of water in the wintertime. You're better off finding a lake with a solid block of ice, right? Or a bucket in the backyard that got full of water and then froze over. That's a better source of water. You're still going to want to maybe filter it, and definitely you're going to want to boil it, because lots of particulates can hang out in your water when it's outside. But an ice block is a much better source of water to try and melt down. Snow is extremely ineffective. Ask somebody who's done it, like me. It's all I had in a pinch, because we were on dry ground, and there was no other way to find that ice without having to go through a lot of effort and dig down, and I was in an immediate need of water. So snow it had to be, but it took.
And yeah, you need a ton of snow, just to make a pot. Like what I heard somebody said to me that water to snow is like 37-1 or something, some like ridiculous number. So yeah, it takes forever.
It's a total waste of your fire or whatever energy source you are using to melt down that water. It's a total waste of it if you're using snow. So you're better off grabbing some form of ice. Hey, roof icicles, great source, right? Great source. Start with that, right? If that's all you see around you. If it's available, it's available. So look up as well, not just down. Because yes, water flows down, but it does flow down from those shelves and those ledges in nature as well. You will find rock falls where water does weird things and will ice over in special places like that. Target those, right? That's pay dirt. It doesn't take much to break off ice, although a hatchet works really well. If that's all you've got in the wintertime, a hatchet is really good for that. People use chainsaws as well in a pinch. If that's all you got, that's what you got. I'd rather you use one that's got vegetable oil. So that's a lot better for things like when you're a hunter, right? Having a chainsaw with vegetable oil is a good idea. Nowadays, we got all these fancy electric ones, so it's not hard to have a spare one on hand. You only keep for veg. And then at that point, it's a great way to go and get water out of the lake. Really, really, really easy and quick. The old schoolers, though, they'll swear by their hatchet. And incidentally, that's also how the Amish do it still. So the old school tricks work. Yeah,
and you mentioned it, Gunny, and I forgot, so thanks for bringing that up. Don't use, especially if you're in a flood situation, don't use the water from the flood, because as Gunny said, it's going to pick up all of that stuff from the vehicles, the oils, the greases, the antifreeze, all of that stuff that boiling it isn't going to remove. So, if you have a well and it's been overrun by a flood, make sure that you have a really solid look at it before you're taking water out of it. The one thing I do want to quickly jump on, Off Grid Life said, I put 20 drops, I'm assuming bleach, to a 55-gallon barrel. Should I add more? Yeah. I think I said it's 6 per gallon. So 655 is what you're looking, 300-ish in a number. I'm not great at math, but yeah, 20 drops isn't a significant number as far as I'm concerned. It's better than nothing. And if you've used it and you haven't had problems with it, I think you're pushing your luck. But yeah, I would tend to want to put a bit more in it than that. So
yeah, it might be worth doing a little bit of math on that number.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not the 1 + 1 = 4 type of math.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's my style of math, just for the record.
Now, one thing I'll talk about, though, is wintertime, places to have your water with you in the wintertime. And I talk a lot about the wintertime because it's the one type of weather we underestimate the most in Canada, especially if you live in an urban area. You probably have grown to the expectation of you turn the tap and there's your water. And so that's a really good thing. But long term, let's talk about long term. People have used totes, right, in the past. As long as you can keep them at a certain temperature, a tote, I guess, is not bad, but you're going to want to keep an eye on the sun. If it's exposed to the sun, the plastic in those big totes, and when I'm talking about the big totes, we're talking about multiple hundreds of gallons worth of totes, right? These are big containers. They usually have an aluminum frame around them. They're designed to be fit on a pallet so that you can take any kind of mechanism you use to hoist that pallet, whether it's a forklift or a truck or, a boom or a tractor, whatever. You can then carry it and haul that around. And it's a semi-portable way to get water back and forth. Some people will use those for long-term storage, and that's great. But again, the plastic, long-term, it gets brittle, gets exposed to UV, it will get tired, it will crack. So I have concerns there. And of course, there's the freezing, right? So consider how you're going to keep that warm. Are you going to use a solar system? In which case, man, you've got to store a lot of energy to heat up heating wires to keep all of that temperatures off the grid. You better move those containers indoors and have a way to transfer the water from wherever it's coming into those containers. So it's a lot of planning. You can definitely overdo it. But again, using the technique that we typically advise here, think rationally, right? How much water would you need? We know that 3 days without water is really bad. Okay, great. But we know that in Canada, we got bad storms that can shut down infrastructure for 3 days. No problem. So I think it's probably better to have more water than you think you need. But of course, you've got to balance that out with your storage requirements, right? How big is the water that you need to support you and your family for a week, let's say? How much water does that take? It's surprising if you think of what you use just to flush things down the toilet, right?
And that's why I haven't got into the storage yet. But you're right, Gunny. I did not put those totes there for a specific reason. And that, as you mentioned, was most of it is the UV, the amount of water, all of that stuff. I mean, if you've, and I'll go jump into storage and it'll kind of explain it. So it's recommended, if you're going to store it, that you use some kind of food grade, water specific storage container. A lot of RV places sell them. They're some of them are square and blue. Other ones are jugs. And they're blue for a reason, to repel the UV rays, because they will, as Gunny said, they will degrade the plastic. They'll cause, I think they make the water bad quicker, is my opinion. So that's a good idea. If you decide to reuse some kind of a storage container, 2-liter plastic pop bottles as an example, they're a good idea. There's 2 liters. Don't use jugs or cardboard containers that have had milk or fruit juice in them. The reason is you're never going to get them 100% clean. The milk protein and the fruit sugars provide an environment for bacteria growth. Even though you're putting your bleach and all that in it, where you would think, it should last several months, next time you go out, you're looking at it and it's got a green tinge to it. Well, that's just because those sugars and that stuff have eaten up the chlorine. Now there's nothing in there and your bacteria is starting to grow. So fill the container, whatever container you get, as much as you can to the top, close it tightly with the original cap, write a date on the outside or a tag on it or something, and store it in a cool, dry place out of any direct sunlight.
I've got a little pro tip for those of you who expect your water to freeze. This is something that I did up at the cabin because I could go away. Let's say I went away for a weekend. if I go away for a weekend, everything in there is going to freeze. And so knowing that water freezes, I used blue water reliance containers that you can get at your normal Cambodian Tire, as Jeff says. The tip with those is make sure you don't fill them up all the way, right? I filled them up about 2/3, and that gives plenty of space for ice and water to expand and do its natural thing, and you're fine, right? So that's what I did, and I had multiple jugs so that if for some reason I got stupid and overfilled one and it would split, guess what? I got 2 or 3 others, right? And Wade here asks, how long can you store the water in the blue water container? I don't know what the official answer is to that, but I've had mine up there a year and went back to it, and I felt okay. I still boiled it when I was using it to do drinking things with it. And what I would do is for my drinking water, I would just go back to the spring where I filled them up. But for cooking, for washing, fantastic stuff. So that's how I did it up there off the grid, because the water where my cabin was not suitable for washing your clothes or drinking unless you were to run it through a lot of filtration cycles. So that was very intensive work to do. So instead for me, because I went to town on a regular basis, I took advantage of a freely available spring that's available at the roadside, and it's free, public. So and it ran year round, and it's excellent water, slightly mineralized. So it gave the water a great taste, but over time, over freezing and thaw cycles, your water would develop a little bit of sediment into it, which is normal, but very good water. So know your water sources. If you speak to local people, they will probably be able to point to you where good, clean water is available in case of true emergency, where you can't even have any nearby, right? None at your location. It's not a bad thing to know where your local spring sources are. So that's what I did up there, where there was just nothing available close by. That's the way I went about it. So there you have it.
Yeah, that storage is one of those. Everybody has an opinion. You ask 10 people, you're going to get 10 different answers. My thing, or what, at least what I'm using or going along, is replacing it every 6 months. Now that's the water that I've purified or I've cleaned and I've put into that blue tote. I would do it for 6 months. Commercially bottled water, like the water bottles you buy, they claim there is no expiry date. They're infinite. I'm not sure I buy that either. But I use about the 6 month window for what I do. If you go a bit over, I don't think it's much of a big deal. If you've gone a long time, like Gunny said, you have some concerns about, well, you know what, it's been a year, just purify it again. It's not going to hurt. Put a few drops of bleach in it and away you go.
Yeah, I think
water's been around as long as the world has been.
Yep.
Yes. I think that's a very reasonable approach. And we all know in a situation of survival, if that water has been sitting on a shelf for 2 years, you're still going to drink it.
Yep.
I know I would.
Yep. Brandon in the live chat makes a good point I wanted to get out. Just I know these are pretty popular in the preparedness world when people do start thinking about water. It mentions the IBF totes we use for watering our livestock last a few years outside before they break down. So good thing to keep in mind, because I know a lot of people in the preparedness world kind of gravitate towards the IBF totes because they store a large amount of water.
They do.
But also a good point by Brandon there. You got to keep them outside usually, and they're going to break down. So be ready for that, because Canadian winters are harsh.
Yep. And those IBF totes are great for that, because livestock uses a significant amount of water, much more than we do. You've got the livestock probably there for food for later on. So, you need to take care of them. And, but yeah, he says lasts a few years outside and then they break down. So
I think the most significant factor for that is UV exposure. So if you're able to keep some sort of roof or shade over those containers, you're in better shape, right? Your plastic tops are going to last a lot longer. The plastic won't be as brittle. It'll last a little bit longer out there. But yeah, I think there's a limit to how long plastic lasts, period, outdoors, even if it's those nice blue containers. So be ready to cycle out your containers. I think is great advice all around.
So that was that's kind of what I had, and I hope I've kind of covered enough for people to get some ideas in their heads and some thoughts. Again, we're not here to tell you how to do it. We're giving you ideas. We're giving you thoughts. You know, it's up to you to put those thoughts into actions and do your own research. And like I said, you know, the whole storage thing, that's just a massive rabbit hole. But you know, at the end of the day, like I said from the very beginning, I think that water is not something that people gravitate to, or I guess, you know, think big term, because let's face it, it is very rare that you have an occurrence where you don't have water. You go, you turn on the tap, you've got water. And I think that's why people overlook it a little bit more, and they put more of an emphasis on the food. But again, like I said, you know, you've got those nice jugs of food. What's that food? It's either dehydrated or freeze dried. Guess what? To make that edible food, you got to put water in it. So, you know, and I think part of the other thing is, we're talking about the totes and all that, is it is very intensive. You know, if you want to store a lot of water, you got to have a lot of room to store it. You can store a lot more food in a smaller spot than you can with water. But if you don't have the water, the food's useless.
Oh, it's a good point.
Another little note for those of you to scale it back, because when we're talking about IBF totes, we're talking about a sizable amount of water. But to bring it back to the typical scale of the individual who's just thinking, oh man, what if I'm on the go, right? Okay, well, I'll give you an indication of what I carry, which is lightweight. It's not a big commitment like an IBF tote, right? You've got collapsible water containers. They're typically made out of plastic. They're lightweight. They can collapse and fold down. They usually have some sort of cap, some sort of handle or grip or means to carry it once it's full. There's different bags, formats in bags. You've got hydration bags. These are all different ways that you can carry your water when you're in a portable, on-the-go, true emergency scenario where you're disconnected from your home base. And that's what I keep in my truck, in my food bag. So in my food bag, which consists of, as Jeff just mentioned, nice survival and camping dry foods, I've of course thought ahead of the fact that I'm going to need water for all those things. And so I naturally do have water bottles in the truck, and we're at that time period where I start to drain some of them so that they've got room for expansion. That way I always have water in the truck, even if it's frozen, it's at least in the bottle. And that means it's pretty easy to either bring to room temperature in a warm spot, or break the plastic open and I've got ice I can thaw, or break up into pieces, right? So I've always got something like that in the truck. But failing that, it's good to have portable, collapsible containers. In the wintertime, in survival situations, you can make from just about anything, even a baggie, a tiny little compact bag of water that you keep against your body. And that's the idea behind these soft, small containers. If you can find small, soft containers of various kinds, you can fill those with water, keep them against your body, and that allows you to have water that is not frozen, that you can have on demand, because that's going to be your biggest challenge in the wintertime. Biggest challenge in the wintertime, walking around in a scenario where you've managed to boil your water, but now you've got to go walking around with it because you've got to find shelter. right? So how do you carry your water? Find ways to have soft waterproof containers. Keep one of those in your go bag, soft waterproof water bag, something that you can fill up with water so you can get from where you got your water source, from where you treated and filtered your water, get it from whatever container that was in into something that's portable, and away you go to your safe place to go make your food. Because you're not going to make food while running. You're going to need to stop in a safe place where you're not exposed to the elements. You're going to make a fire probably to make your food, right? So these are things you have to keep in mind in those winter situations. Collapsible water containers is the way I've gone. And that's just a surefire way to have some sort of manner to keep that water against you and make it portable at the same time. A poncho is another essential part of my go bag. There's always a poncho. The poncho, if I'm in a complete desert and overnight I wake up, I can rig up this poncho so that I capture the morning dew, and eventually I'll have a little bit of water there that I can drink. It's not enough for my daily hydration needs in total, but form of water is form of water, right? And the poncho can actually be used as a water bag in a pinch, right? So it's one of those hero pieces of gear you keep in your possession, in your go bag, and it can double as a number of things, right? So the poncho, once again, comes to the rescue where water is concerned. In a pinch, you can make yourself a water bag, carry against your person in the middle of winter time, or in the summertime, you can carry your water around if need be. So that's what I got for you for the truly frugal and the truly size challenged, right? Because not everybody has a lot of space to have all this kit and all this gear, right? Maybe you're living in an apartment the size of a shoebox, right? And so I've seen some of those places they rent in Toronto and Vancouver. They're tiny. So how do you prep in a place like that, right? So think of collapsible containers and things that you can carry with you on a backpack. And I think that's a pretty good start.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Awesome. Any last minute comments on water?
Yeah, I was going to say, anything I haven't covered, anybody in the live chat, anything I haven't covered, you got a question about, or fire away and I'll see what I can do to send you in the right direction or give you a bit of advice. But outside of that, I think I've kind of covered everything, but
I just had a thought for you though, Jeff. And this could be possibly an entire other show, but just a note, if you're worried about water conservation, you should probably think of things that are dehydrating you too, and maybe not do those so much. So like alcohol, you might want to curb that down if you're low on water. Coffee and tea, yeah, sure, they wake the body up, but they also make you lose your water and you dehydrate a lot. If you're out in the middle of the sun,
they're a diuretic, yep.
Yep. If you're out in the sun all day long, just get in the shade. If you're low on water, get in the shade. So water conservation is just as important as making and finding your water. Oh, we got a great comment there from Scott. Can you put that one up on screen?
Sure
I love
can.
that one. Oh, I love this one. This will fit in your go bag. It's definitely in the frugal side of things. Right? So Scott says, an ex-British soldier says, he always carries a condom. It can carry a liter of water and it takes zero space to carry. You bet. And you can give it a knot and away you go. And you now got your portable water. Great tip, Scott. Thank you.
Yeah. And
yeah.
Kind of on that topic you talked about there, Gunny, quick thing I forgot to mention is if your supplies are running low, my advice, as I said about, and Gunny mentioned, how long you can go without food. We've seen thousands of examples of people being caught in collapsed buildings and earthquakes and being pulled out, 7, 10, 12 days later, and they're alive because they had access to some kind of water or something for hydration. So even if you're running low, don't ration your water. Drink the amount you need today and go out tomorrow and find more.
Agreed. Cramps are a horrible thing. They cripple you when they hit you. And if you're dehydrated, you're not going to be able to function and find more water. So Jeff is 100% right. Hydrate while you've got it. Drink it. Right. Great advice.
Awesome. Well, hopefully that helps get a few people on track with water. And yeah, you guys are 100% correct. I think it's one section of preparedness that people completely overlook and just kind of think, well, I'll turn the tap on. I'll be fine. Or I'll go out and get some snow. I'll be fine. So it's I think it's really good that we kind of covered this and touched on it, because yeah, it's definitely overlooked and it's thought of in the community, but it's not as focused on, I guess is the best way to put it, because it is such an easy thing to come across while times are good.
It's not a very sexy topic, right? It's just water. But go without it for 3 days.
Could start doing a wet t-shirt contest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, you're making me think of other things, Eric.
Not suggested when times are bad and water is hard to find, though. All right. Now that we're talking about what t-shirt contests, it's probably time to move on to the podcast challenge. So, podcast challenge for this episode is get a water storage solution in place and start a routine for rotating it. And like we've talked about, it doesn't have to be the giant IBF totes. It doesn't have to be a big complex kind of setup. Even just a case of water, and just start rotating it and getting used to having it around. All right, upcoming events. Annual Preppers Meet 2025. It's not here yet, but it is coming July 10th to 13th. So get ready for that. It's always a good go. Hopefully all the panelists be able to come out again, and maybe all at the same time this year. This last year we kind of came in different stages, so it'd be nice for us to all get there all at the same time and get to meet everybody. So
I myself
fantastic event.
I'm booking all the days, so I hope to be there. It was a great time last time, and I had a chance to network with a few people. I highly recommend you come out if you've got any little bit of prepper inkling. There's a little bit of something for everybody there. It was a great time.
And it's a very friendly, welcoming environment. So even if you're new to the prepper world, come on out, say hello, and learn a few things.
Yeah,
don't be afraid to ask questions, because there's all kinds of people there, even on the fringe side of it, who will give you some.
They're all friendly. That's the thing, right? Yeah,
but they're all
friendly and willing to chat and willing to share their knowledge and listen to everybody else's point of view too. I think that's the coolest part about being there, is everyone's willing to listen to everybody else's point of view. There isn't the whole my way or the highway. It's kind of a neat, unique sort of setup that way. Everybody's just, sure, let's hear what you got to say. I might not agree with it, but let's have a conversation, right? It's really neat that way. I have yet to have any kind of a conversation with somebody there where they have just put their foot down and said, absolutely not, it has to be this way. Everyone's willing to just listen to each other and learn. It's a really cool environment.
It seemed to be the most reasonable group of people I've seen together ever in my life. So I was hooked. I got to go back and experience this again. But I had some great feedback from the participants who were there, and I'll be rolling that feedback into my content as time goes, when this work stuff kind of relaxes and stops consuming my life. But you'll definitely be seeing me at that one. That's July 10th to 13th, right?
Yep. Correct. July 10th to 13th, 2025.
Yes.
At the same place, the Slovenian hunters and anglers, just north of Alliston, there, just north of Everett.
Great location.
Yep.
All right. And Jeff, you got a weather blurb.
I do. So we talked about Helene in the news and all that stuff. And unfortunately, as that area and things continue to recover, I am monitoring the next hurricane. It just got named. It got named yesterday as a tropical storm, and it became a Category 1 hurricane this morning. It is very, very like Helene. It kind of meandered around in the Caribbean, kind of, would intensify, would drop off, would kind of meander around. But once it got into the extremely warm waters of the Gulf, it underwent a rapid intensification. Same thing that happened to Helene. If there's any good thing to it, and there's never a good thing to a hurricane, but if there's a good thing to it, the path is not going to be the same. This is going to take a path more in a west to east scenario as opposed to a south to north, where Helene went up and through Georgia and into the Carolina up that. Milton is going to make a cross across Florida, be a bit of a west to northwest direction. North to northeast direction. And it is going to hit somewhere, unfortunately, again, in the Tampa Bay area. You could be looking at some more significant storm surge. There's still a bit of uncertainty as to how big the hurricane's going to be. I'm not wrapped up on that. I don't care whether it's a Cat 3, a Cat 4, a Cat 5. It's a hurricane. And it's life-threatening. If you're anywhere in that area, I think a lot of people in the Carolinas and all that will tell you, don't be a hero. Pack your bags and find somewhere else to go. Don't be a hero. Landfall is expected sometime early Wednesday. Like I said, it depends on the models. Some models have this storm hitting a Cat 5, but then dropping off a little bit, maybe to a Cat 3 by the time it hits landfall. Again, what difference does it make? Do your thing. If you're in that area, don't be a hero. First responders sign up to come and help you in emergency situations that you had no control over. You have control over this. You should not be putting first responders' lives in danger coming to rescue you because you were stupid. And I'll come out and say that. And I make no regrets for that. So, and that's my blurb.
Remember, feedback at prepperpodcast.ca. But Jeff's got a totally valid point. Totally valid point.
It is. Preparedness is prevention as well. So,
yep. 100%. Oh, with that, I'll bring episode number 249 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. Now you can find the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or of course your favorite podcast app. I'm pretty sure we're on all of them now. Do submit a review. It does help the algorithms. Kind of pushes us to the top for a minute there, and then we end up back down because, that's just how the algorithms work. But it does help other people find us.
And we do record these shows live on YouTube and Facebook. If you want an early peek at the shows, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click the notifications tab. That gives you an alert when we are going live. You can contact me, feedback at prepperpodcast.ca. As Eric said, if you want to bitch about me, that's fine. Everybody does. Or I am frequently on the Discord, especially if you're looking for weather updates on the hurricanes and that stuff. I'm pretty active on Discord for that.
And you can find me, the Frugal Gunny, on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, Instagram, and the CPP Discord as well.
All right, and please check out Rapid Survival at rapidsurvival.com. You can get me there on the live chat. You can also email me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. And if you sling any shit at Jeff at feedback at Prepper Podcast, I'll make sure it gets to him. The good stuff I keep to myself. I don't tell him, but the shit flinging ones, I'll make sure he gets them right away. So thanks for joining us. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe.
And keep learning. And keep bitching if you want to.